Nothing comes easy. Success doesn't just fall on your lap. You have to fight for it every single day of your life and win. Dana White. After buying the UFC with the Fertitta brothers for $2 million in 2002, decades later, the Ultimate Fighting Championship has become one of the most iconic brands in sports, generating billions of dollars a year annually. But fascinates me the most is Dana White's communication style, which is exactly why in this week's episode of MasterTalk, we're going to be talking about Mr. White. Hi everyone, Bren here for MasterTalk on your go-to channel to mastering your talk. And today we're rumbling with the president of the UFC. So let's ring the bell and get started. Number one, be unbelievably outspoken about what's on your mind and people will appreciate it. Dana's considered to be controversial by many people in his industry, but like him or not, he's outspoken and people appreciate that. When you think about the CEO or the president of multi-billion-dollar companies, most of the time, you don't even really know who that person is. And that's why I respect Dana, because he does every press conference, he shows up in front of media, and he answers questions. And whether you like his points of view or not, at least he's out there. And there's a very big benefit to doing this. When you analyze his competitors like Bellator or One Championship, do we really know who the CEO of those businesses are? And the answer is we don't really know who's running those companies, but we know who Dana White is. And that personal brand actually has a significant influence on the revenue and the brand perception of the UFC. And that's really the lesson, is if you're the CEO of a business or you're starting your own movement, people will always hate on you regardless of what you build. But it's important for you to sometimes show your face because it influences how people see the brand and buy from you. And a lot of people associate the sport of mixed martial arts to just Dana White. That's how powerful his personal brand became just because he shares his ideas openly for the public to judge. Number two, infuse your personal brand at the center of your own ideas. Dana White's incredibly talented at product placement. In an episode of MasterTalk where we covered Warren Buffett, I explained in that video that he intentionally drinks Diet Coke or cans of Coke or eats Dairy Queen ice cream because he's a big investor in those companies. So in many ways, Warren Buffett has become a brand himself. Dana White is having a similar trend happening in his own industry, where people associate the brand of the UFC and MMA as a sport to Dana White. This is why he always does every press conference. The audience, including me, of the people watching the fights, actually sits down for 20 minutes and wants to listen to how Dana White talks about fights, what he's excited about next. And what he does that's very subtle, but to people who are great communicators, it's obvious, is he's always selling the next fight. Oh, we have to do a rematch. Oh, we need to do this. I'm really excited about the next fight. He's always selling the product of fighting. And that's why every time the UFC comes to a new city, it's always a top 3 arena sales event because Dana White is a master salesman. So what does that mean for us? Whenever we introduce our own personal brand at the center of our ideas, it influences how people perceive the brand and also the actions they take, because you yourself become a thought leader of the industry. No one's waiting in line to see what Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg think about social media or e-commerce, but people want to know what Dana White thinks of the fights, and that allows them to generate and capture substantially more revenue and brand equity for the UFC as a company. And that's also true with you. What if you became the Warren Buffett of manufacturing? What if you became the key person of the UFC, but for fashion? That will help you generate more impact, more income, and more opportunities for both yourself and the people around you. And finally, number 3, if you end up being wrong about something, apologize, correct it, and quickly move on. Dana White has been wrong countless numbers of times in his career, but the punchline is nobody cares. When Dana was much younger, he is quoted to have said, "Women will never fight in the UFC as long as I am president." But he literally changed his mind after a meeting with Ronda Rousey, who's an icon in this sport today, including people like Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko. And that's really the point I want to drive, is after he corrected that mistake, years later, only the super fans who were there very early in the UFC even remember that moment. But most of us just forgot about it and moved on. And Dana White has done this dozens of times in his career. Whereas if he never owned up to that mistake, people would still be chasing after him for those mistakes that he made all those years ago. Which means done is better than perfect. We'll make mistakes in our journey, but when we do, it's very important for us to just apologize, correct it, and people will just end up forgetting about it. And that's the key I want to leave you with. People only remember the home runs that you hit in the baseball game. They never remember the 200, the 500, the 700 missed bats that you did on the field. Only the home run that you got. And as long as you remember that, you'll be an exceptional communicator as well. If you get into something you're really passionate about, fight for it every day to make it come to life. Dana White. Whether you like the guy or not, there's no denying the influence that this man has had in mixed martial arts, from taking the UFC to a bankrupt company to one of the leading sports brands in the world, generating billions of dollars annually. That's really the key that I want to drive here, is when you really care and you're willing to change your mind and you're willing to push for what's possible, you will innately become a better communicator, because the necessity of being exceptional becomes mandatory. Because if you don't do it, you're not able to create buzz around your brand like Dana White has done so masterfully. As always, if you enjoyed this week's episode of MasterTalk, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well to see more videos like this. And of course, if you love these types of videos, I highly recommend you attend one of my 90-minute free trainings on effective communication over Zoom. I do them every 2 weeks, and the link to register is in the comments below. I can't wait to see you there. And of course, if you know one person that's a fan of the UFC, be sure to send them this video so that they'll be one step closer to getting that final punch. See you next time, everyone.